Welcome to the Hud Grad Club. I'm Chris Webb, and I'm the Alumni Engagement Career Consultant with the University of Huddersfield's Careers Employability Service. And, full disclosure, I'm also a University of Huddersfield graduate. So I've generally got pretty positive things to say about both the institution and any of our graduates. But don't take my word for it. In this podcast, we'll be meeting different members of the University of Huddersfield's global alumni community, finding out what makes them tick, about their experiences during their time at the university and their career journeys since completing their studies. Join us as we explore the inspiring, innovative and diverse range of individuals that make up the Hud Grad Club. Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Hud Grad Club, and Rumana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. Looking forward to what we're going to discuss today and everything, and I hope everything I share to the viewers and listeners would in some way be helpful to them.
I'm certain it will be. So to kind of kick things off, for maybe our viewers who don't know you, haven't met you before, can you tell us a little bit more about what you kind of studied at the university and what you're up to now?
Oh yeah, sure. So I came to UK in 2018 to do my degree in education. Since then, I've just been at the university and I graduated in 2021. And I'm currently working with the Students Union at the Advice Centre as a student advisor.
Fantastic, thanks, Rumana. So I know we're going to kind of dip into that in a little bit more detail later in the podcast about your kind of journey through working with the university, which is what you did while you were studying as well. But we start every podcast episode, as always, with our greatest Hud story ever told section. So this is a chance to kind of test your memory a little bit and hear about some of your reflections from your time at the university. So are there any kind of particular stories or sort of key kind of memories, I guess, from your time at the university, although you're still with us, that you'd like to share as part of the podcast?
Well, there are many things that I still do remember as a student, starting with the first day, for example, of my course. Going in, it was really different for me to see the classroom settings, see my classmates and meeting my tutors for the first time. It was all really overwhelming. And since that, I've been involved in many things at the university, including the events, societies, SU as well. It's been a very integral part of my journey because I actually started working for the first time in my life, volunteering at the SU as an academic rep, and then I've been involved with them with a part-time job as well. I think the part that I remember the most is making friends from maybe all over, like the people who I never knew, the countries, for the cultures and everything, learning about them was really interesting as well.
And you mentioned there obviously about sort of coming to the UK for the first time in 2018, and you know, I guess you're saying certain elements being quite overwhelming and there being sort of cultural barriers to break down. What was that sort of like, you know, coming over to study in the UK?
I guess the weather was the first thing that I noticed as soon as I landed on the airport. And I was really cold, even if I was wearing like a really warm jacket. I was with my uncle at the time. He was accompanying me all the way, and I was like, why is it so cold? And he's been here like for a few years before, and he was like, yeah, I told you it was going to be like this. And I remember not getting out of my room for 2 days straight and just like being near the heater just to keep myself warm. And as soon as my uncle would say, do you want to go out, do you want to eat something? I was like, no, I don't want to go out. It's too cold. I think from that day to now where I am, I think it's a really big change for me, because even if it's like too windy out there, it's raining and everything, I'll just be too normal about it. I'll just be like, oh yeah, it's the UK, but it's okay about that. I think that was the most funny thing that I remember about myself doing
And you've obviously, as you said, adapted it because you've chosen to kind of continue working in the UK after finishing your studies. So it's it's obviously you've adjusted to the horrible weather.
I have actually. I did adjust it to it because there's so much more than the weather that I couldn't let down myself just because of the weather, because there's so many other things as well. Huddersfield is quite diverse. That's one thing that I really liked when I was searching for the universities before I came here. My uncle was insisting me on to go to Huddersfield because he's been here, and he was like, it's a really good town, you'll like it. He knows the way I am, my personality and stuff, and I like being quiet and not really overcrowded places, because that's where I come from. I come from Pune, and it's quite compact, like city town as well. I really like that thing about Huddersfield, as well as the university and the exposure that it has to international students as well, the things that we do with international students here, and it's got great roots. I mean, I've been to London, Manchester and big cities like so many times, but coming back to Huddersfield at the end of the day feels always good.
Yeah, it's interesting how many people say that. Obviously it's all very individual, like you were saying. Some people are very big city people, but yeah, there's often a lot of warmth, I think, for Huddersfield, the size of it, and how I guess it feels kind of smaller and friendlier sometimes. So that's really great to hear. And I mean, a nice point, I guess, to move on to talk a little bit about, I suppose, the journey sort of through the degree, but also kind of after the degree in terms of what you're doing now. And as you mentioned earlier, you're in sort of a interesting position where you've kind of finished and left the university, but you've not really left the university because you're still working with us in a sense. So tell us a little bit more about the job that you're doing at the moment, and how you got into that.
I'll start with my course first of all. So I always thought I wanted to be a teacher. Since I started my course and everything, really loved the modules, got extremely really good support from the tutors and everything, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm here, to be very honest. They were really supportive. But I guess in my second year, when I went on to placement, when I got an insight into actual career, that this is what I'll be doing after my course and everything, is then when I decided I needed a little shift, because that's when I realized that this is not what I really want to do. And I thought it's just because of the place, maybe it's just because of the school, maybe changing a different school would help it. But I did change to another school. I went on to from a primary education to a nursery, just to see if I still want to do that. But I didn't want to do that. I loved being with children and everything, but on a non-teaching side. I guess when I came back, I spoke to my tutor and everything, and I eventually got my modules changed my third year, which turned out to be really good for me, because it was more of leadership and management side, which is really helping me at the moment with the theories and everything that I've learned. I can really put that into my work, what I'm working. So throughout, I guess the skills and the knowledge that I've built on, it was more on a student support service side rather than like on a teaching side, because it's a whole different structure, it's a whole different dynamic that when you go into a teaching side. But I never built on my skills on that. So since my first year, I involved in the societies, leading a group. So being the president of an international society was something that I'm providing a student service. I'm leading them, and I'm managing a group. That led on to becoming a academic rep, again, where I'm representing my peers, their issues and everything. Again, nothing relating to teaching. Then I went on to getting a paid job, a part-time paid job in the SU, being the academic representative assistant, like a bit higher level in the same area. But I was the assistant then, and I was managing a whole school, and that was the Human and Health Sciences. Did that for 2 years straight. So I think I think whatever you do whilst you're studying gives you a really good opportunity to look at what you're really good at, and you can then maybe narrow your things down, because all these years that you're studying, these 3-4 years, are the best days for you to look at what you really want to do, change your skills, like adapt to something else. But I really wanted to sort myself out in these years, so I do not be confused at the end of the course of what I want to do. So
yeah, I mean, there's two really interesting points in there, Rumana, that you've made. Obviously, one around kind of like the benefit, as you were saying, of volunteering and part-time work for kind of helping you work out what you're good at, what you like, what you don't like. But I think also what you were saying about, you know, kind of challenging what you thought you wanted to do versus what you realize, oh, I actually want to do this. And I think, you know, when we were talking off the podcast earlier period, you mentioned about sort of, yeah, almost that way of kind of filtering down, which I think would be really interesting to sort of explore in a bit more detail. So when you kind of came to that realization, I guess, around teaching, you know, actually, no, it's not, you know, teaching certainly in schools is not really the direction I want to go in. How did you kind of manage that process of going, okay, I need to rethink a little bit here, and how did you, kind of end up at the place, I suppose, you're at now?
Yeah, so as soon as I realized it wasn't easy for me to start thinking about a new career suddenly in my second year. So when I thought about, like, maybe teaching is not my career option, and I do want to think of something else now. So I thought of it all being on a horizontal kind of scale, where I still had education in my mind. So I was really determined on that I do want to continue the education, but maybe not primary education, higher education, because that's what I'm working in now, and I've developed my skills all throughout in that area. And then when I chose that, yeah, maybe I want to be in higher education, and then I started thinking about, okay, so I don't want to be on the teaching side, so maybe on a non-teaching side, but in education. So that narrowed my things down, and then I started thinking about, like, what in higher education then. And then the student services came to my mind, and then support came to my mind. And at that level, I was open to anything that would help me build my skills on the student support services. So after I graduated, luckily I got this really brilliant opportunity to start as the Trainee Student Adviser at the Advice Centre. And because I was open to anything in that area, this was a really good chance for me to see if I want to go down to this route. And now that I'm here, I think I'll narrow down a bit more, because I have been advising students in many different subjects, like finance, housing, well-being, academic. Maybe going further, I might want to narrow it down a bit more and go to a specific subject area where I want to build my expertise in that. For example, finance. I just want to learn everything and anything about finance. I want to build my knowledge on student finance, entitlement, everything that covers that subject, basically.
Such a good example, like you were saying, Rumana, about kind of experimenting, I guess, you know, in that period at university, experimenting, you know, the things that you think you might like, and starting to kind of filter down those options. And I guess, you know, you've also mentioned there about the massive benefit of volunteering work experience in terms of developing new skills. Can you speak to a little bit more about that, I guess, in terms of how did those sort of various roles that you took on, whether it was through the Students Union or other roles with the university, how did that kind of build different skills for you, I guess, that you're using now or that have really helped with your career?
Yeah, I think when I started from the volunteering role, it was more about communication. So talking to different student groups that comes from different backgrounds, and they have different issues. So you basically, what you're doing is learning from them that what's happening. So how do I now portray this to the SU, and how are they going to portray it to further to the panel? How am I going to represent this and everything? Build on from that, I guess I built my communication skills on that. And then when I started off doing the paid part-time role at the Students Union, bit more responsibility comes on to you, because you've got some reports to give back to your manager, so you get your admin skills developed there. So you've got some administration skills going on. You do have to like organize your timetables and stuff, and then you do have your job as well to do. So you've got some organizational skills going on there. You've developed on that as well. I think when I was the assistant, the academic rep assistant, the first ever time that I ever trained to a group of students was in that role, and quite nervous at the first time and everything, but when I started doing it, when I kept doing it and everything, I guess I built on my public speaking skills as well. And it's not just about doing it in your role, but you can also learn. Like, you can always do mistakes. I've done so many mistakes, but I've always gone back and learned from them. I don't think you can always ace something.
Yeah.
Your first attempt, sorry. You cannot, you can always go back and correct that, but you always been on from that. So when I look now back to when I was an academic rep, and I literally used to be scared, like getting feedback from students and everything, and now I see myself like literally assisting a group of volunteers, like looking after them, managing them. They're coming to me with the issues and everything, and I'd be really cool with it because I've got the skills to manage it. So I think it's everything about you learning what to do.
And again, I think it's such an important point that you've come back to there about sort of using that time, I guess, at university to make mistakes, to try things out, to experiment, not be so worried about, not see things as a failure, but as you say, as a learning experience, which I think is
definitely, yeah. I felt so many times, like for the first time, I was really sure that I wanted to do a job at the university, whether it be voluntary, whether it be part-time. I wanted to work at the university. But for the first few times I failed. I did not get what I wanted, and I think that was for the best, because I got the best offers after that. When I actually built on my skills and everything, people wanted me. So for the first time, when I still remember applying for a really simple job. It was a note-taking job, and everything went really well and everything. I didn't get the job. I was really disappointed. But I think throughout that process, when I was preparing for the interview, maybe I was really scared. It was the first time when I actually went on to doing something like this at the university. Again, it was on my list that I've learned something from this. I've done an interview, even if it was not successful. I was invited for an interview at the university. That was my first step. Then and then it went on, and I never gave up. I don't think I ever gave up, and I was just like, oh, I'm not going to do this. I'm too scared and this and that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been here where I am.
Absolutely, it's putting yourself out there, isn't it? I think that's such an important point you mentioned there around, you're going to have some occasions where maybe you don't get a job that you want, or get the particular job that you want, but using that as a kind of, I guess, a platform to build on and think, okay, well, how might I get that in the future? Or as you said, going off to seek different experience, and actually that giving you then a year or so later an even better position that you could then move on to. So
yeah, I believe the only thing that I strongly believe in is these 3 years or 4 years, how many ever years you are at the university, the best time to literally explore everything you can do, like everything. Just make these years work for yourself, and then you can sit back and relax once you get your degree. You don't have to do anything because you've already done in these years, you've already done everything that you could have, basically.
Yeah, you're sort of setting the foundation up, as you say, and then you've got the choice after uni. If you want to still kind of put a lot of time into professional development or learning, which is always really useful, you can, but you can do it, I guess, as you were saying, in a more personal way. You're not kind of stuck within a particular structure, but you can choose when to go and do those different things. So you're setting that foundation through the time at uni that gives you then a really good platform, I guess, to launch off after you finish. Yeah, I mean, fantastic insights there, Rumana. And, you've talked a lot there, I suppose, about, the things that you've done specifically to kind of support your career development during university and post-university. How about kind of other people, I guess, you've encountered? Have there been any sort of significant figures in your career to date who've sort of supported you, I guess, in the journey so far?
I believe the first shout out that I would really want to give from the bottom of my heart was my personal tutor. When I started my education, I don't think if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been where I am, because the education in the UK was so different to what I've done in my home country. I wasn't introduced to referencing. I wasn't introduced to anything else, but she didn't really force these things on me, but she knew where I'm coming from, and she was really patient with me throughout my journey. And I think when I see her and everything, I really get some inspiration from her as a person as well. I always look up to her and be like, I really want to be like her. And her name is Lindsay Watson, and she's one of the lecturer in the education school. And even when I got to know that she's not going to be my personal tutor in my third year, I was really devastated just because I had such good relationships with her. It's not like she spoon-fed me with everything. No, not at all. She pushed me to take challenges. Went on to me saying that, no, you can't do that. I was like, I can't. No, you can't do that. Come back to me in an hour, do that report, and I be doing that. Just with that a little nudge and then motivation that she gave to me. And now when I look back, I just be like, if she wouldn't have done that with me, I wouldn't have been able to do like anything at all. She's been a boon to me, to be honest, at my time when I was studying.
Wow, I mean, yeah, a well-deserved shout out to Lindsay there, and we'll let her know when the podcast comes out, and hopefully, Lindsay, you're watching this, and yeah, enjoying your shout out, definitely well-deserved. Any other kind of key people sort of in your career you'd like to give a shout out to while we're on the podcast?
Yeah, so as Lindsay Watson was the most important person in my education journey, Heather Wade, who was still a manager in the representation team, was the person who believed in me when I didn't in myself at all. So she was the first manager for me when I started doing a paid part-time job at the SU. That was a really big achievement for me, but at the time I was really nervous. I didn't know how I'm going to do in my role and everything. Just like how I got, I was really lucky to get that motivation and encouragement from my tutor. I got the same thing from her. She always pushed me to do things which I didn't think I would do, and one of which was training, doing the welcome talks and everything. He believed in me, and I think that was the greatest thing that I could ever get from people. So.
Yeah, and again, I think that would be a very, very popular shout out. I know Heather's, extremely kind of popular member of staff in the university, and yeah, it sounds like she was a real inspiration to you. So yeah, two fantastic shout outs to both Lindsay and to Heather. I hope you're listening to this. So, I mean, Rumana, thanks so much. You've already shared some really, really kind of brilliant reflections from your career so far. I'm sure will be kind of really useful and resonate particularly, I guess, with recent graduates. We finish off each podcast, as always, with our underrated careers advice section. So other than, I guess, what we've talked about already, are there any sort of nuggets of wisdom or kind of particular bits of careers advice, I guess, you'd like to share from your experience to anyone who might be listening to the podcast?
Right, so first of all, starting to my previous point that I've already mentioned, making your time worth whilst at the university. Starting from day one, I know you need some time to settle in, make friends and everything, but just remember that this is your time to build on for your career life. So you can sit back and relax when you finish your degree, and you don't have to then start whilst you can start right now. So from the first year, just try and find the opportunities that you can build on your CV. Just keep building on your CV. Just make a practical CV, put on the list so you know where you are. You can keep a track of things of what you're doing as well. The university life can be really overwhelming. It can be tight with schedules and everything, but just remember 3-4 years of effort, and then the rest of the life you can just take it on from where you have built it on in these 3 years. So that would be the first piece of advice I want to give. The next thing is do not hesitate to ask for help. Many students I've seen that would just sit back, especially international students, would just sit back and would not ask for help, thinking that maybe there's a feeling of guilt, maybe there's a feeling of shame, but please, I mean, all these people here working at the university literally getting paid to help you. So, and I think that there's a solution to everything you're facing, because you're at the university, and if it's related to academic, related to you, related to university, there's always a solution. So do not sit back. Please come up and make that effort to ask for help, and I'm sure that you'll get what you want.
Yeah, some great tips there, Rumana. And I think particularly as you were saying about that idea of setting the foundations while you're there in university, there's so much support around you. There are so many opportunities that you maybe don't get once you're outside of that sort of university setting. So to be able to use that is so important within those 3 or 4 years, depending on how long you're there for. So great reflections. I mean, again, brilliant to have had you on the podcast. If we've had kind of current students or graduates or anybody else who's been watching who maybe wants to kind of reach out or get in touch with you, what's the best place for people to find you?
They can definitely get in touch with me via LinkedIn.
What we'll do is we will put that down the bottom of the screen. We'll flash it up so that anybody can find your URL and get in touch. So yeah, great offer there from Rumana. If you're watching this and you've been interested in what Rumana's had to say, do reach out to her. So that really nicely brings us to the end of the podcast. So Rumana, thanks so much for joining us, being another member of the Hud Grad Club, and obviously we wish you well with everything in the future.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been really great speaking. It's been really great to have those memories back on and having like flashbacks of what I've been throughout. But thank you.
Brilliant to have you with us. Thanks, Rumana. Take care. Goodbye. Enjoyed the podcast? Then go to the University of Huddersfield YouTube channel for all of our future episodes. Subscribe, like, and don't forget to hit the bell button for notifications. If you'd like to be involved in the Hud Grad Club podcast moving forward, please get in touch with us on alumni@hud.ac.uk.